Hi there, Ron Schara here for Star Bank. If you're putting your money into mega banks down the street, who knows where that money's being used? Bank locally. Keep your money local with a community bank that actually cares about you, your family, your business, and your goals. Check out the bank we use at Minnesota Bound. Try Minnesota's own Star Bank. You can find them online at starbank.net. When you call Star Bank, you actually hear a real living person answering the phone. Star Bank has 10 convenient locations around Minnesota to serve you and all the mobile banking products that you need to manage your money. Check out all that Star Bank has to offer at starbank.net.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Minnesota Bound podcast, the stories behind the stories. I'm Laura Schara, your host for today, and this week's podcast is all about Thanksgiving. Why wouldn't it be? It's the week that we gather with family and friends and eat all the delicious things that come along with Thanksgiving. So I'm excited to have Chef Jim Kyndberg with me on the podcast today, executive chef from Dellwood Country Club. Chef Jim, how are you?
I'm doing great, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for hopping on the podcast today to talk all about turkeys. And we're not talking about hunting turkeys today. We're not talking about turkey calling today. We are talking about cooking turkeys because this is the week. It's done, yes?
Yes. It is go time.
It is go time. And I'm sure your week is crazy busy, not only with family for you, but also at the country club. Do you serve Thanksgiving dinner at the country club?
We do. We actually have a big buffet. We have 2 different seatings. And then we also have a large curbside to-go business as well. We'll do a cold pickup the day before and then a hot pickup the day of.
Oh my gosh.
So a lot of moving parts. A lot of turkeys.
That's a lot of moving parts, and that's so brilliant on your half. First of all, if you live anywhere close to Dellwood Country Club, I would suggest doing curbside pickup if you can from Dellwood Country Club. I guess you'd have to be a member to do that. Do you have to be a member to do curbside pickup?
Well, if you know people, we can arrange for it.
All right.
There you have the answer.
Our family's going to Dallas, Texas to hang out with my aunt and my mom's sister and my uncle, my mom's brother. So my mom's side of the family. So otherwise I would be driving from, all the way from Wayzata to get your turkey and your cooking, Jim. It's always so delicious.
I would make it worth your travel.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, let's get down to it. There's many ways to go about cooking turkeys these days. And it seems like, over the years, people have gotten more adventurous in how they're going about cooking turkey. And we're going to kind of run the gamut on, if you're cooking wild turkey versus domestic. I'm going to say the majority of us are probably all going the domestic route. If you still have a wild turkey hanging out in your freezer, I would suggest definitely eating it. Because it's probably been in there a few months now. But, what would you say is still, let's just go with, what's your favorite way to make a turkey on Thanksgiving?
My favorite way, and I've done it many, many, many different ways, but what I've kind of reduced it down to, what it's been boiled down to, I do a brine. I do a cider brine. And I also do an injection in the breast.
Okay.
I do a butter, herb, and a little garlic, little shallot injection in the breast. And then I cook it on my green egg, kind of low and slow. And I do cook a big bird for presentation. And that's always the challenge, is getting that breast meat so it's, nice and juicy still, while that thigh and leg meat takes a little longer to cook. And you want that dark golden brown color. It's not easy. So every year has been a little bit of trial and error, but I think I finally got it down with the green egg. We're really happy with the flavor, the moisture, and that overall, presentation experience, the dark golden brown.
Okay, so we're going to have to break this down because we're going to start with the brine. I was reading up on some different ways to cook Thanksgiving turkeys, and from a lot of chefs actually around the country, and each chef kind of had their own way of doing it. Some people are brining, some people are breaking the turkey down, spatchcocking it, confit the thighs and smoking it, or brining it in other certain spices. So let's talk about brining and how important that is, because a lot of people probably assume if you're buying a domestic store-bought turkey that it's pre-brined, and I'm guessing maybe some of them are. But do you brine your turkey on top of it if it already has been pre-brine, or there a lot of them are injected with saltwater solution anyway. Is this correct? How can you break that down?
Correct. You need to read the label. If there's a sodium solution on the label, or even if it's kosher, that's one that's a little tricky. Most people don't are not aware. If it's labeled kosher, it's been salted. So technically it is brine, whether it's a liquid solution or a dry solution, a dry
So would
brine.
you brine that again or no?
You can, but I would weaken the solution, not so much salt. But it's not necessary. If it is soaked in a sodium solution, I would discourage against that. I wouldn't be opposed to maybe doing an injection marinade like that, doing a butter rub, all those kind of standard things. But brining would not be necessary if it's already prepared in a sodium solution.
Okay. So if it's not brined, what do you put in your cider brine? Because that actually sounds pretty good.
If you're doing a smaller bird, like a 12 to 14 pound bird, you can go with like a half a gallon of cider. And then it's, I believe, 2/3 of a cup of salt, 2/3 a cup of sugar. I do some peppercorn, some allspice, but the herbs are the important part. In my opinion, you need some sage in there, some thyme, some rosemary doesn't hurt. And then, I do like to give it at least a solid 24 hours in that brine and keep it as cold as possible. That's a very important part.
Okay. So when you say keep it as cold as possible, I mean, is this just basically refrigerator temperature?
Yeah, typically when I prepare my cider brine, I'll warm it up on the stove to make sure I melt all the salt and all the sugar. And then also if I'm doing like garlic and onions, and I like to do citrus in my brines as well, maybe slice a orange in half, maybe slice a lemon in half. But think of it like preparing tea. It just kind of opens up those flavors and infuses in that liquid. And then you want to cool it down. And so if you have time, you can do that, in your refrigerator, get it cold, and then put a little ice in it. If you don't have the time and you want to bring it down rapidly, you can just crush a bunch of ice right into it. But remember, that's going to bring your salt solution. It's going to dilute it a little bit. So go a little heavier on your salt and your sugar if you're going to chill it by ice.
Okay. This brining part's, I think, one of the most important part of getting that Thanksgiving turkey perfect, because we've all had Thanksgiving turkey that's been served dry, and it's basically like eating cardboard. So the brining really helps maintain the moisture in the bird when you're cooking it. So I always love, and there's so many different ways to go about it. I was reading someone uses a pastrami brine.
Interesting. I have not heard that one.
Isn't that? I know. That's what I thought that would be really interesting too. And then they smoke the bird after that. But so that would make sense that if you're going to add ice to your brine, that you are definitely weakening this solution. So you do 24 hours with the bird. Does it depend on the size of the bird and how long you're brining it? Do you ever do 48 hours if it's a really large bird?
Yeah, if it was a large bird over 20 pounds, I wouldn't be opposed to doing a day and a half, even up to 2 days. I wouldn't go much longer than that, because then you really start playing with the texture of the meat.
Okay.
That's the thing with brining. You want it as close to that natural, but the reason we brine is for flavor, but more importantly, the retention of moisture. And if you over brine, it does tend to get a little rubbery.
Yeah, that would not be good.
Nope.
Okay. And then when you take it out of the brine, there's also the process of making sure the skin then has a chance to dry out, so the skin gets crispy when you're cooking it.
Yes. So once again, this is tricky when you're preparing large birds, over 20 pounds, because most people don't have that kind of space in their refrigerator, but you need to create a nice cold environment, dry environment, to allow that skin to, basically dry out, to shrink up a little bit. And that's what gives you that nice crisp skin that everybody loves. So I'm lucky enough to have like a little, we call it the mud room. And this time of year, it's usually pretty darn cold. And it stays right between 35, 40 degrees if we just crack the window. So that's my little trick that I'll put it right out there. So I actually do my brining. I do big birds in my, I have like a Yeti cooler. So I'll do the cold brining, the solution right in the cooler, put it out on my back deck. And then when I bring it in, I rinse it off good in the sink. And then I take it out to the mud room and crack the little window out there and, try and keep it as close to about, 33 degrees as possible. And I'll do that up to 2, 3.
For a chilly day around Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Right?
it usually works out pretty good. Every once in a while, I'll get in a little bit of trouble, but I'm also fortunate enough to have the restaurant to back me up in their big walk-in coolers if need be. So I'm not sure everybody has that resource out there, but it's nice to think that through if you have those options.
That's true. And I was also reading up as well on the larger the size turkey you're purchasing, as much as you think that it'll be great, it can feed everybody, etc. It is harder and more challenging to cook and have it cooked all the way through. So I've been reading that buying smaller birds, maybe a two
Yes.
or three of them, is actually an easier process for
Yeah, that's the smart
novice.
call. Unfortunately, we've created a tradition in my family where they want to see that big bird, and I have the resources to make it happen. Otherwise, I would be going in the direction for sure of cooking those, 10 to 12 pound birds, under 15 pounds for sure. They're a lot easier, and you don't have to rely on the brining so much either because their meat is, it's younger, it's more tender. It naturally retains more moisture, and there's less cooking time for it to dry out. So there's a lot of benefits to cooking those smaller birds if you can get past that wow presentation of a big bird on the platter that we all grew up, wanting and loving.
My dad's wow presentation, every Thanksgiving, I always love sharing this fun story. And we kind of have tease him a little bit during Thanksgiving because my dad is always the person that carves the turkey when it comes out
Nice.
of the oven. And I am now, after working with you all of these years, I realize we've been carving the bird way too early. Like, you're supposed to let it rest, and we'll get to that in a minute and how many minutes we should be letting it rest. But so my dad's in there carving right away, and then as soon as it's carved, he is almost goes into a little bit of a panic mode, making sure everybody's sitting down so it doesn't get cold. And there's never been a meal the rest of the year where he's ever like, everybody needs to sit down. You got to sit down. Everybody hit the table quick. But Thanksgiving, sure enough, you can count on my dad to go into panic mode after he carves the bird. Be like, we got to sit down. Is everybody ready? We got to sit down. And so that's always been, kind of our fun family tradition of just waiting for my dad to hit the panic mode, as I'm sure lots of people do when they're cooking turkeys, because it's just not easy. So going back to the injection solution that you used, you said it was a butter and herb situation that you're not basting, so you're actually injecting that into the breast?
Well, I'll baste a little bit too, because when I cook it on the green egg, I will do a foil pan underneath.
Okay.
But I don't like to baste a lot because you're lowering the temperature, the cooking temperature. You're letting that heat out of your oven, of your grill, or whatever you're using to prepare the bird. And I like to keep those temperature ranges as consistent as possible. So if I'm cooking a 20-pound bird, that's going to take me, 4.5, 5 hours. And I'll probably baste 3 or 4 times max, so maybe once an hour. I just find that, with the injection, with the brining, basting isn't, it's nice, but it's not as necessary. I don't want to take the risk of, extending that cooking period to 5 hours and allowing that to dry out even that much more. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I do love the drippings. I mean, that's the gravy to me is as important as cooking the bird properly. Making a good gravy, that's what Thanksgiving's all about to me.
For sure. So now I want to actually get the information down here about how you actually inject this bird with butter. So when do you do this injection? Because I've actually not heard of this before.
So after it comes out of the brine, when I'm basically drying out the skin, I'll do it. Yeah, if I'm cooking it that day, I'll probably do it that day, the injection.
Okay.
So if it comes out of the brine, I dry the skin. That's probably the last thing I do before I really put it in the oven or put it on the grill. It doesn't need to be in, a day before. I'm sure it could. I know people who do it. It's fine.
And what's in this sauce? It's butter or like what type of
It's chicken stock. It's a lot of butter. And I do a little garlic, shallot, herbs, and you can do a little citrus as well. I like a little lemon zest, a little fresh lemon juice.
Okay. And so you must be injecting this all over the bird. Like
I do it more so in the breast, though.
Okay.
I find the thighs and the legs, they retain enough moisture on their own. It's just, and if I was cooking a smaller bird, I'd probably be tempted not to do the injection.
Okay.
It's just one of my insurance plans, basically, when you're cooking those big birds to help retain that moisture. And just bring it over the top even that much more.
And then there's also this concept of, spatchcocking turkeys. And do you want to
Yes.
just explain to our listeners what spatchcocking is and then why there's a benefit to doing that when you're cooking and how to do
Sure.
it?
No, I love spatchcocking. I'm a firm believer in it. And I'd probably spatchcock that big bird if I had a bigger grill, because it does lessen your cooking time. But basically what you do, you cut down on the backbone on each side and remove that backbone. And that allows you to take that breast and just splay it out. So you're essentially flattening the bird.
And then are you, when you're grilling it or whatever, are you putting that skin side up or skin side down?
Skin side up.
Okay. Very cool.
That's the way I've always done it because I want that, crispy skin.
Yes.
And if you put it skin side down, it's going to be in the drippings and it's basically going to, poach a little bit in that liquid.
Okay.
Versus if it's skin side up, you've got that cage underneath it to elevate it just a little bit.
Got it. And if you're still wondering how to go through the spatchcocking process, I would suggest probably hitting YouTube for that because it's easy to do. And I actually love, when you have spatchcock chicken or any of that is, it's a wonderful way to cook. And I think it would definitely, be easier to make sure that the meat is cooked all the way through in a shorter period of time. And like, as you said, if you're using a smaller bird, you could easily throw that on a grill or what have you.
Yeah, and it's an easy way to marinate a bird too. If you want to do a wet marinade and just put it in a foil pan and put it in the fridge overnight, then you just literally would have to put that foil pan, right in the oven the next day. Super quick, super easy way to prepare a delicious bird.
All right, so going back to your traditional route of cooking the turkey, how you said you're cooking yours on a green egg, and which I love the green egg. It's obviously has a ton of flavor. If you are traditional route using an oven, what do you suggest, like temperature wise? Are you, starting it at a high temperature, then lowering it as the day goes on, or you just keep it at one temperature? What is your suggestion?
I really don't scale the heat. One suggestion would be to, I always take the oven racks out and put it on the lowest rack in your oven available. You want that room above it to be able to circulate as much as possible. If I have a convection setting on my oven, I'll go 325. If I don't have a convection setting, I'll go 350. And a good rule of thumb is, I believe it's 13 minutes for every pound. So if you have a 12 to 14 pound turkey, I think that equates to a little over 3 hours. That's kind of the scale that I've always gone by.
Awesome. And then are you bringing birds to almost room temperature before you're putting them in the oven?
Ideally, yes.
That's what I thought.
As far as the health department goes and their recommendations, their requirements, there's something called the danger zone. So you don't want to allow that turkey to be in that danger zone for more than 4 hours at a time. That danger zone is from 41 degrees to 100 and, on a turkey, 165 degrees. Actually, I think it's poultry is 145. You have to cook it to 165, the finish temp, but that danger zone kind of stops at 145. Well, that's the optimum temperature for that bacteria to form, or potentially, bad things could happen.
Sure.
Which is not what Thanksgiving is about.
No, not at all. That would be horrible. So relative to room temperature, it's not like you need to keep your turkey sitting out on your kitchen counter for, 24 hours before you're cooking it.
Correct. That was my point.
Yeah. Just don't bring it right directly from the freezer and then all of a sudden it's in your fridge for a few hours and then you throw it in the oven. It's also probably going to be a disaster.
Yep. And by having that bird as close to room temperature as possible, it shortens your cooking time. So once again, it's a little trick to help maintain more moisture and, better quality bird.
Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Beef. Grass-fed beef right here in Minnesota. We make a career talking about clean water, native habitat, and some of the best environmental practices. That's exactly why I'm so excited about Thousand Hills. It is locally raised beef done differently. You see, Thousand Hills uses what is called regenerative agriculture to raise their cattle. Those beef cows, they graze in fields of wild grasses, and they move between a lot of different fields of grass. It is a sustainable ecosystem free of synthetic fertilizers and chemical herbicides. It's a system of agriculture that promotes clean water, natural grasses, and the best beef you've tasted. It's beef raised the right way. You can check out Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed grass-fed beef to understand their regenerative agricultural practices and fall in love with Thousand Hills beef.
And also, a word from Minnesota Propane Association. Did you know that a propane gas furnace lifespan averages 20 years, while electric heat pumps only last 14 years? And propane furnaces work in all temperatures while delivering warm and consistent heat to your home. Why buy 2 heating systems when one propane furnace can do it all? It lasts longer, works better, and it costs less. These things and more are done with propane today. The right energy right now. And thanks to North Dakota Tourism.
Another of our great sponsors, North Dakota Tourism. And you need to start planning your fall bird hunt in North Dakota at legendarynd.com. North Dakota right now is home to more than 800,000 plots hunting acres. Plots, that is private land that is open to public hunting. The plots guides, they show you exactly where all that land hides. Right now, North Dakota's ringneck crowing counts, they're up like 15% this year. The state is also home to an estimated 2.9 million breeding ducks. It is an absolute outdoor oasis. Bag your limit this fall in North Dakota. Visit legendarynd.com.
Hey, I'm really picky when it comes to my drinking water, and I have the reverse osmosis drinking water system from Connecticut, and I love it. It takes out contaminants in the water, it removes chlorine, and most important, it tastes great, which is the one thing I'm probably most picky on is how does my water taste. So having Connecticut also means that I use less plastic water bottles, which we all know is a definite bonus for our environment. For more information, visit Connecticut.com to find a dealer near you. Cool. All right. Now let's get back to how long the turkey should rest after it's out of the oven. So this is where my family, I think, has made the mistake once or twice or more. Typically that's where all the moisture gets reabsorbed back into the meat. And if you're cutting into it too soon, obviously that all ends up at the bottom of the plate. So what is your recommendation on turkeys, like full turkeys for resting periods?
For an average sized bird, under 15 pounds, I would go at least 20 minutes, if not 30 minutes. And if you can, put a little foil tent over it, give it 30 minutes, you're going to be very pleased with the results. You'll still see a little juice rolling out when you're slicing it, but it's not going to all end up on the cutting board like you see happen if you don't let it rest.
Okay. That is a critical tip, ladies and gentlemen. It's the rest. Let your bird take a nap like you're going to do later in the day, because it's going to be so much more flavor and tenderness and everything else by having time to reabsorb all that moisture.
But one other important fact, Laura, is you got to appoint someone, if it's not yourself, to watch that bird during the resting period. Because if our listeners' houses are anything like my house, people like to walk by the bird and pinch off little pieces of meat and skin and, just to make sure, taste test it for me. So I tend to, during that resting period, pour myself a nice glass of wine and just kind of hang out real close to the turkey.
So your turkey has security details, what you're telling me.
Correct, it does. I've learned from experience.
Because when they're lifting the tinfoil tent that it's under, it's getting rid of all the heat, so it's cooling it down. Okay.
You get in big trouble for that.
Well, then yes, definitely have security detail around the turkey. I did not know that either. That's also a great tip. And for those that are just deciding to cook some wild turkey, and, most hunters are, you have the turkey breast left over. They're not hand plucking turkeys to leave the skin on. If they do, I admire that skill. But, if you want to use some wild turkey, do you have suggestions on ways that they can incorporate that into their Thanksgiving meal? A lot of times that's not going to feed a huge, big family or et cetera. So do you have any tips on what they could do with that if they wanted to share some of their wild bird with family?
Yeah, I've limited experience cooking wild turkeys. The couple of times I've done it, I've tried smoking it. I have tried cooking whole breasts. One of the things I found was really interesting, I even think we did a segment on it one time, was like a turkey scallopini, where you're cutting fillets out of the breast. You're pounding them thin. You're dredging them in a little seasoned flour, and then you're pan frying them in butter.
So good.
Yeah, and deglaze it with a little white wine, a little lemon juice, some fresh herbs. Finish it off with a little sweet cream butter. It's really delicious. So that would be my suggestion if you want to make a nice turkey dinner, something you can be proud and everybody's going to enjoy, flavor, texture-wise. But, smoking, once again, you're probably going to be brining it there, and you're going to be cooking it low and slow. If you got a smoker that you like using and trust, that's a great way. It's not quite the same as, a conventional roasted turkey, but it can be a lot of fun too. It's something different, something unique, and you put in the time to harvest that bird. It's not a bad way to do it at all. I've always struggled with wild turkeys with their legs and thighs, and the last time I pretty much just made a stock of gravy out of them. Was able to pick some of the meat and incorporated that into like a stuffing. That was pretty good. But there's not a lot of meat on those legs and thighs, and it's pretty tough. But you can still get good flavor out of it, which can lend to a gravy or a stock.
Sure. And you're right. A lot of people aren't even taking the turkey thighs with them at times. Sometimes it's just the breast that's harvested out.
Correct.
But it's a great way to utilize the whole bird if you want to get some really good flavor. Of course, you can always make bone broths and things like that with, the bird carcass and stuff. But another popular way, of course, is deep frying. And I don't know if you consider that cheating, being the chef that you are.
I'm not opposed to deep frying. Trust me.
If people want to deep fry their turkeys, wild or not, do you have a suggestion on oil that they should use for the best flavor?
I'm a big fan of peanut oil when it comes to deep frying big birds.
I've heard that.
It's got a higher cooking temperature and it's a lot more stable.
Okay.
It's still got a pretty neutral flavor. You don't really taste the peanuts in it per se, but I do like the clean aspect of it and the high smoke point. You can really get that temperature ripping and fry that bird quick, so all that moisture is just trapped in there. It's not going anywhere.
I've never had a chance to sample a deep fried turkey. We've never done that in our family.
I've only had it a couple of times. I've seen it done. The one time I was a part of the action, it was interesting experiment because you're putting basically a cold bird into really hot oil, which is a violent reaction. And you got to make sure you got the right amount of oil in your pot. Otherwise, it can get pretty dangerous, pretty scary really quick.
Okay. Well, we're not going to recommend deep frying your turkey on the Minnesota Mom podcast.
Delicious way to do it, but there's a danger element. So be careful if you're going to try it and do your homework and watch some videos. And sometimes you'll learn what not to do on those videos.
Exactly. Or just go to the Minnesota State Fair if you want that deep fried flavor.
There you go.
Are you a fan of any of those roasting bags that people are using when they're cooking their turkeys? Is that a yes or no?
I don't like them. I mean, you're talking about the plastic ones?
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of experience with it, but to me, that just seems foreign to cook in plastic like that.
Yeah, I agree. I was just curious.
So, probably not the best person to ask that question.
No worries.
That's just my thoughts.
No opinion is a wrong opinion when it comes to
Thank you.
turkey, Jim.
But, I'm sure it does retain some moisture because you're basically sealing it in a bag.
I know. I'm not a fan of that either. I just don't know if there's what kind of chemicals are in the plastic. If you're letting that drip into your turkey, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's my concern for sure. Yeah. I even I got a sample a few years back, and it was a seasoned cooking bag. So there was actually seasoning in the bag.
Which tells you whatever's in the bag does get into your turkey. No,
precisely.
Thank you. No, thank you on that. All right. Well, this is super helpful, and it gives people some great tips on ways that they can try maybe a different way of cooking their Thanksgiving turkey, from injecting it with a buttery herb sauce to, of course, brining it, etc. Do you have any other, before we go here, I know you gotta run because you've got things to do at the country club, but any other tips or tricks that you want to share with people on any of your favorite sides that you love that goes with turkey, anything?
Well, I think I referenced it really briefly, but I'm a gravy guy. That really makes the difference. And then it's another little insurance plan too. If your breast does dry out just a little bit, if you have a delicious gravy to put over the top of it, all sins will be forgiven. I promise. But yeah, I usually will try and scrounge up some turkey necks. That is a great way to kind of naturally thicken or add some body to a gravy. Smoked drumsticks that you can buy in the grocery store.
Oh,
Simmer
yeah.
those into your stock, which you're making your gravy, and then adding drippings to that.
Okay.
I've actually, I usually finish my gravies off when I bring over the bird and take out those final pan drippings. And I've taught a lot of people in my family because they're like, how do you make that gravy so good? And I show them it's just, you're making a good stock to begin with. You're naturally thickening it with as much of that natural collagen from the turkey necks. You're cooking that down, reducing, concentrating that flavor. You finish it off with a little bit of butter. If you need to add a roux or a little bit of flour or a little bit of cream, if that's what you like, you can. I always keep that to a minimum and just finish it off once again with, just a little good sweet cream butter, herbs, shallots. If it needs a little acidity, squeeze a little lemon juice or hit it with a little white wine. But yeah, it's every year I try and outdo the gravy that I did the year before, and it just keeps getting better.
That sounds delicious. So a lot of people are just using basically like chicken stock or chicken broth from a box when they're making gravy, aren't they?
Yeah, you can start with that, but
But
build
then
on that. Don't
later,
rely on that for your flavor,
yeah,
100%.
that's
Even
a
if you add,
great
turkey
tip.
drippings to that, it's pretty darn good.
Absolutely.
But try roasting some shallots, try roasting some garlic, adding some fresh thyme, adding some fresh sage, finishing off with that butter, backing off on that roux and allowing that to reduce down a little bit more so you don't have that, granular texture to it. It's just, lighter and
Flavorful.
there you go. Thank you. Flavorful.
Fresh herbs, fresh ingredients are always the way to go with anything that we've made on, for Minnesota Bound, Wild in the Kitchen. Fresh herbs always make the difference. Fresh ingredients, taking the extra steps, as you said, to get the extra flavor goes a long way. As
It
much
does.
as we love to take shortcuts in our cooking, sometimes just taking some time to chop fresh herbs versus
Yep.
shaking a shaker bottle with dry herbs is a big game changer there. So
Right. No, we're busy people. I get it. But like you said, it does make a difference if you use the great fresh ingredients and solid cooking technique. That's the edge.
all right, Chef. Well, we appreciate your insight on cooking the best turkey we possibly can this Thanksgiving. And from the Minnesota Bound family to all of your families, those who are listening, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And there's much to be grateful for. And Jim, same to you. Happy Thanksgiving, and appreciate you spending time in the Minnesota Bound podcast.
Oh, appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to the Schara family as well. Please pass that along.
I will. Thank you. Also, big thank you to Minnesota Propane, Connecticut, Thousand Hills, Lifetime Grazed, and North Dakota Tourism. And last but not least, don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors.